How's everybody doing? It's great to see you. It is great to see you. So it was a little while ago, maybe a year ago or so, my wife and I, we got a coupon at our house for this restaurant that we like. We haven't been there in a while, and if you have kids, you know what a mission it is to go anywhere with kids, especially to a restaurant. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of times I'll tell Carrie, because she'll be like, oh, let's just order the food in. I'm like, if we're going to order the food, let's just go there. Because the cool part about going to a restaurant is that you leave the mess there too. And if you ever let the kids destroy the place and then we're going home, So anyway, so we were excited. We got this coupon for this place or whatever. So at the end of the meal, we're sitting at this four top, one on the end. And so I kind of have my body turned away from the table because I'm trying to flag down the server. And as I'm flagging down the server, my wife jumps up and boom, grabs something and then sits down. I turn around and I'm like, are you okay? And she said, yeah, there was a roach on the table. But I got it. And she opens up the napkin and sure enough, dead roach in her hand. I was amazed. She was like a cheetah. Wow! Just like got that thing. Seriously, like amazing reflexes. And so I said, all right, let me have the napkin. She hands me the roach napkin. And I finally get the server to come over. Pardon me, I stand up and I say, hey, listen, this was on our table. And he said, hey, I'm going to go ahead and get the manager for you. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. And so the manager comes over, he apologizes, and then says the words you never want to hear as a customer, which are, I know this is a problem. Which, you know what I'm saying, is that like, hey, this isn't the first roach we've found here at our establishment. So then he starts telling me this story, which I think he's thinking is going to make me feel better. And the story goes like this. The place next door closed, and so it's vacant, and the roaches have moved in there. Like apparently they're going to start selling stuff in the next bay. And he says, but so we started spraying not only in our place but next door. And you know what happens when you spray? They get mad. I'm like, and I said to the guy, I don't think that's right. Like I'm not like I don't work in pest control or anything, but I'm pretty sure like when you spray, they don't get mad, they get dead. I'm pretty sure that's the way it's supposed to work. And if they're just getting mad, you may want to up the dosage, to like just take these people out, And so anyway, needless to say, the meal was free. That was the good news. And the food was delicious. That was the other part too, is that, but the meal was free. And then the bad news is my wife refuses to go there ever again. And and not only that, but she will not go to any other location of this restaurant ever again, which was kind of a bummer. And my wife still, to this day, is like, I can't believe that even after everything, you still asked for the refill in a to-go cup. And I'm like, I was thirsty. What did you want? So now, I tell you all of this, not just because I do like grossing people out before lunch, I do. And I didn't tell you what restaurant it is, just because I like to keep you guessing. And I also don't want to get sued, so that's why I didn't say. So nonetheless, but here's the thing. Now, whether you realize it or not, every time you visit a restaurant, it's an exercise in faith. I mean, think about it. You're not inspecting the place. You go into a restaurant and you're having faith that the place is clean, that the people in the back are cooking things as they should, that the employees really have obeyed the sign and have washed their hands before returning to work after leaving the restroom. That's what we're hoping. But now here's the other truth, is that in reality, you can't go an entire day without exercising some level of faith. You used faith when you came in here. Think about it. You got to your seat and you looked at the seat and you looked at yourself and then you looked at the seat and looked at yourself and you said, I believe that as I sit down, this chair is going to be able to hold me. Now, and I will recognize that based on your height, weight, size, and shape, some of us have exercised more faith than others. All right? I will recognize that. All right? But the moment that you just said, okay, here we go, and sat down, you were exercising faith. And the thing is this, is that we're all exercising faith all the time. No one is devoid of faith. Even those who claim to have no faith are still exercising faith, if that can even make sense. Because they have a fundamental belief, and here's the fundamental belief of those who have no faith, is that there is nothing more in this life than what we can see. But see, they have to have faith in that belief that that's all that there is, and they're guiding their life, living their life based on their faith in that belief. So everybody is believing something. Everyone has faith in something. The Bible teaches us how faith works, how it operates. In the book of Hebrews, I put it in your notes. I'm going to give it to you in two different translations. The first is in Hebrews 11:1. It says in the New King James, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Now let me read it to you out of the New Living Translation, which I think maybe kind of explains it a little bit. It says, now faith is the confidence that what we hope for will actually happen. It gives us assurance about things we cannot see. You see, most of us in this room are what would be considered believing people. We are considered to be people of faith. And we believe that there is a God in heaven and that he is mindful of the affairs of men. But God wants to build our faith, grow our faith, develop our faith. And if we could be honest, once again, when it comes to our faith, each and every one of us are a mixed bag when it comes to faith. All of us have moments of unshakable faith. And then we have other moments where our faith is a little bit shaken. There's this story that in the Gospels, in the Gospel of Mark, where a man comes to Jesus and his son is ill. He wants Jesus to heal his son. And Jesus tells the man that all things are possible to him who believes. And this is what the man says. This is his response in Mark chapter 9, verse 24. And he says, Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief. And I think that's such a perfect description of us, because sometimes we have moments where our faith is unshakable, and then we have other moments where our faith is a little bit shaken. We have moments where it's like our faith just, none of these things move me, no matter what's happening. And then we have other moments where we just need our faith to be shored up a bit. And these are the moments where God collides with our faith and wants to build our faith. And in the story before us, in John chapter 7, and I'd love for you to open to John 7 with me as we continue our series called Collision through the Gospel of John. But in the story before us, Jesus is going to collide with the faith of the people of Israel, with the belief of the people of Israel. He's going to challenge them to believe. He wants to elevate their faith and put their faith in him. Because our lives are simply a series of moments where God is challenging our faith and causing us to deepen our faith. And I want to tell you something, that sometimes we will mistake these two things, where we'll say, I believe in God. But listen, can I tell you this, that believing in God and believing God are two different things. Believing God is a matter of fact. You believe that God exists. Believing God is when we decide to put our faith in him because we trust no one else but him. You see, there's this moment of truth in our lives where we decide, I'm not just going to believe in God, I'm actually going to believe God. That's the moment of truth that these people are going to see as Jesus comes into contact with them. Jesus would say it this way, the New Testament would say it this way in Hebrews chapter 11, but without faith it's impossible to please him, that is God. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. You see, if you want your faith to grow and you want to believe more, I'm glad you're here, but there's three things that Jesus is going to do with these people. It's the same thing Jesus wants to do in our lives. You see, the people that Jesus shows up to speak to are experiencing, it's a holiday. It's a religious holiday. I mean, people are doing their religious duty and activity. However, Jesus is calling them to something deeper than simply rites and rituals. He's calling them to say, hey, I know that you believe in the Father. Now I want you to believe the Father and the work that he wants to do. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start three things that I want to share with you. We're going to do this a little different. I've never taught this way before. You ever watch a movie and then there's this opening part of the movie and then there's something climactic that happens and then it stops and it says 24 hours earlier, and then that's how the movie kind of goes back to. That's how we're going to do this message. I did it in the last service. It worked out okay. So I tried it again. I told the first service they were my guinea pigs. I'm like, if this is a disaster, I'm going to change it in between services. But it worked out okay. So, we'll see. I got a new Bible this week, which I'm excited about. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm excited about it. I've had the same Bible since we started the church, and now that Bible's like beginning to fall apart. It's got holes in it, and it's got some of the pages. I've done like weddings in the rain, and they're all like crinkled up and whatever. And so like it was overdue. It was time for a new one. But there's been some good stuff that happened with that Bible, so we're going to see how it goes. But if the message stinks, I'm going back to the old one. So anyway, we're gonna break this one in. So anyway, we're going to start at the end of John 7, and then we're actually going to work our way. We're going to go through all of John 7, but starting at the end and working our way back, and hopefully it'll make sense. I think the explanation of what I'm going to do is actually more confusing than what I'm actually going to do. So we'll see. All right. So John 7, verse 37. Here's where we start. It says, on the last day, the great day of the feast, Jesus stood and cried out, saying, if any man thirsts, let him come to me and drink. If you pause there and give me your attention, the first thing that we're going to learn when it comes to belief and how Jesus wants to collide with my belief here's the first thing from this first verse, and that is that belief comes when I recognize my need. It comes when I recognize my need. Now, let me explain what's happening, what Jesus is walking into. It's the great day of the feast. Well, what feast is this? The feast is a feast that in Hebrew is called Sukkot. In English it's called Tabernacles. Tabernacles is a feast that reminds Israel of their travel through the wilderness and their journey from Egypt and out of slavery in Egypt up until freedom in the Promised Land. And so what people would do, and it's actually a pretty cool feast, the way this feast works is that everyone would move out of their house for a week. You live in a nice house, that's great, but once a year for a week, you would move out of your house, you'd move into your backyard, and you would build a tent. And you would live, that's why the word Sukkot means booths, and so it's the Feast of Tabernacles or booths, depending on how you translate it. Pardon me. And so what happens is everyone would live outside, and what they would wonder is, well, the whole point was the kids would say, Dad, why are we outside? And they would explain, when the children of Israel came out of Egypt and went through the wilderness, they lived in booths just like these until God brought us to the land of promise in which we now dwell. And so not only did they remember all the conditions in which the children of Israel were living, but it was an opportunity for them to remember the stories and to talk about the miracles that God did. And the God who performed those miracles for the children of Israel was still alive and well and accessible to us today. And one of the miracles that they celebrated, which was kind of the cornerstone of this feast, was in Exodus 17, there's this moment where the people are thirsty and Moses takes his staff and he strikes a rock with it, or a mountainside. He strikes a rock, and then water begins to gush forth from this rock, and so much water, in fact, that it is able to then quench the thirst of the 2.5 million Israelites that come from Egypt on their way to the Promised Land. And so this Feast of Booths is an 8-day feast, and in Jerusalem, they would do this ceremony that was really amazing. It was very special. And what they would do is they would have this ceremony. Everyone would come to the temple to experience. And so the first 7 days of the feast, there would be this processional where these priests from the temple would leave, go out the front door of the temple. They would go down not too far to a pool called Siloam. We're going to talk about the pool of Siloam in a couple of weeks in John chapter 9. And so they would go down to the pool of Siloam. They would take these earthen vessels, and they would fill the earthen vessels with with the water from the pool of Siloam. Then they would march back to the temple, go to the altar, and then pour the water on the altar. And it was a reminder, this picture, that God had taken water from a rock, and that the people of Israel were satisfied with the water that had come from the rock. If it was a wok, then it would be an Asian restaurant that they would be satisfied from. But anyway, so it's the water from. See how you take water from rock and you turn it into a wok. Anyway. So all right, we're working on it. I'm learning to speak English. So here's what happens. So they do that for 7 days. And then on the 8th day, same thing. Everyone would come out with the earthen vessels. They'd go to the pool of Siloam, but instead of actually getting water, they would only make the motion like they were getting water, and they would leave the earthen vessel empty. Then they would walk all the way back as they got to this where the altar was, and they would pour out the vessel that was empty. And it was just this moment that it's like, well, what were they doing? They were symbolizing that now that they were in the land that God had promised them, they didn't need water to come from a rock anymore, because God had given them this land that flows with milk and honey. And this was this very special moment. That's why it was on the last day, the great day of the feast. This was the climax of everything that they had been working towards over the course of these 7-8 days. And so now they would have this moment, and there would be this pouring where normally there'd be silence so people could hear the water pouring out. Now there would be silence, and then there was nothing pouring out. Because, hey, we don't need water to come from a rock. We're here in the land God has given to us. As they poured out the empty vessels, one of the priests would read from Isaiah chapter 44. I put in your notes. It says this, "For I will pour water on him who is thirsty, and floods on the dry ground. I will pour my spirit on your descendants, and my blessing on your offspring." And there would be, after they would do that, this pouring, the priest would read this, and then there would be this moment of silence. As they, let everybody turn the page. I'll turn the page too. I'm trying not to do something here with a moment of silence, and all I hear is rustling of papers. All right, so let's all turn the page. We're good. We're literally all on the same page now. So here's what happens, right? I'm glad you guys are feeling good today. All right, I'm glad you guys are feeling good. So here's what happens: is that they pour the empty vessels. They read that verse, and then there would be this moment of silence. And in the moment of silence, they would have this moment where they would pray for the Messiah to come. And it's during that silence that nobody is supposed to talk that Jesus stands up and reads, "If any man thirst, let him come to me and drink." And it's just, what? Somebody's talking during that moment. It was shocking. And Jesus didn't just decide to say this on a whim. Here's the part that's amazing to me. This whole thing, these words of Jesus are the culmination of what's been happening all week. Now, I told you we were going to cover the chapter. Now, if you go to the beginning of John 7, you'll see how this begins to formulate in the life of Jesus as he even is at home. He's having interaction with his brothers, and you'll see what happens. Look, in chapter 7, verse 1, it says, "After these things, Jesus walked in Galilee, for he did not want to walk in Judea because the Jews sought to kill him. Now the Jews' feast of tabernacles was at hand. His brothers therefore said to him, 'Depart from here and go to Judea, that your disciples also may see the works that you are doing. For no one does anything in secret while he himself seeks to be known openly. If you do these things, show yourself to the world.' For even his brothers did not believe in him. Then Jesus said to them, 'My time has not yet come, but your time is always ready. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify it that its works are evil. You go up to this feast, and I am not yet going to this feast, for my time is not yet fully come.' And when he said these things to them, he remained in Galilee." Now, if you pause there and give me your attention, here's the deal. Jesus' brothers didn't believe. They were egging him on to go to the feast so that there could be some fireworks. And you can imagine this hostility like only brothers can have. And especially the brothers of Jesus, because I'm guessing that it might have been for them kind of a frustrating experience to be the younger brother of Jesus. You know, like, why can't you be more like your brother? Your brother always cleans his room. Your brother always eats the food on his plate. Your brother always turns water to wine. Your brother always raises the dead. You know, I mean, you can't even get the mail. And your brother healed the mailman. You know what I mean? And so you can't do anything. And so there's all this stuff going on, and there's kind of like the sibling rivalry that happens with the younger brothers. And like, hey, if you want to be famous, right? You're like Mr. Messiah that mom's always talking about. Oh, he's the Christ. He's Messiah. He's the best. Well, go to Jerusalem. If you want to be famous, you got to go to the big city. You don't hang out here in the suburbs. You got to go to the big city if you want to be known. And here's the deal, is that they're saying this, right? Because there's a need, there's a thirst, but they don't want to admit it. Well, why? How do we know that? Because we know for certain that two of them, James and Jude, after Jesus' resurrection, would become followers of Jesus. They actually have two books out, one called James, the other called Jude. They're in the New Testament, and you can read them. And they became leaders in the early church. So Jesus calls out and he says, if any man thirsts, let him come to me and drink. You see, you don't want something to drink unless you're thirsty. And you have to actually recognize the need that you're thirsty. And too many times, let's be honest, here's what we try to do. We try to mask the need, we try to reclassify the need, or we try to downplay the need. Let me explain. This is how we do it sometimes. A few months ago, I'm in Banana Republic, and I noticed something about Banana Republic, and really pretty much all clothing stores that I'd never noticed before. You ever notice, like in the showroom, when they're showing you the clothes that they have, everything is really well lit. Really well lit. And then you go to the dressing rooms to try the clothes on. You ever notice the change in lighting? It's very dimly lit. And so I'm trying on a shirt, right? Back there, I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna look good on me. But then I go back to like the dimly lit room, and then the music is a little different. And I try on the shirt, and I'll be honest, not this shirt, it's a different shirt. But I tried on the shirt, and I said to myself, I'm like, I look so hot right now. I said that to myself. Now, I'm admitting it to you, but I mean, seriously, I thought that. I'm like, I look so hot right now. I mean, my wife is gonna go crazy when she sees this. So I bought the shirt, of course. And so, when you look that good, you gotta just buy the shirt. And so I take it home, and I try on the shirt. And I come in, and I'm like, so what do you think? And my wife says, you look like an idiot. And I'm like, how rude. Apparently you can't see sexy when it's right in front of you. And so then I walk out of our bedroom and into our entryway, and we have a mirror there, and I'm like looking at myself in the full light with the shirt, and I'm like, I really do look like an idiot. What was I thinking? And I'm telling you, this is what happens when you just change the lighting. And this is what we do so many times. It's how we ignore the need rather than recognize the need. So instead of saying, hey, I'm thirsty, we just change the lighting. Yeah, here's what we do. Yeah, man, I'm struggling with that sin or that addiction. Sure, I've got a problem, but man, I'm nowhere near as bad as that guy. That guy's really messed up. What are we doing? We're just we're focusing the light on him, putting the dim light on us. You ever say to a girl, hey, why are you marrying that guy? And she says, sure, he's out of work. Sure, he treats me bad. Sure, he plays video games all day, but you should meet his brother. He's a real loser. And I think, okay, well, apparently that's the rule. That's what we're going with. And what happens? We weren't talking about his brother. But the thing that we do is sometimes we'll just, I just want to shift this a little bit. And that's what we do, is that we just mask the real need, our real thirst. Every person is created with a need for God. Every person is. And we try to mask that need and fill it with something that can never satisfy. You ever gone out, done a bunch of exercise or run or something, and then when you're done, like somebody offers you a Coke? You're like, no. Oh, you're thirsty. Would you like, after running, you like some hot cocoa? No. I mean, what are you thinking? Like, the only thing that's going to satisfy is water. But listen to what the Bible says. It's so true. It says this in Jeremiah chapter 2. For my people have committed two evils. They've forsaken me, the fountain of living water, and have hewn for themselves cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water. And that's what's happening throughout Israel's history. In Israel's history, they would forsake God and then go after these false gods that promised them everything but could never deliver. And let me say, sometimes we'll read these stories like, I can't believe they would go after those false gods. They'd go after Baal and Molech and Ashtoreth and all these other gods. I mean, it's so primitive. But we just changed the name. But it's the same God. So when they say they were worshiping Baal, they were worshiping the God of power and intellect. You don't think there's people still worshiping at the God of power and intellect? Ashtoreth, the god of sex and fertility. You don't think there's people still worshiping at the altar of sex and fertility? And now here, what we just changed the name. But it's still the same thing. And here's the problem, is that sometimes we think that it's only the physical that's going to satisfy, but you and I are not just physical creatures. We are spiritual beings who have physical bodies, and that's why the physical can never completely satisfy. That's why the stuff that we think is going to satisfy our thirst and give us the meaning, the purpose, the significance that we want, it always comes up short. Because the stuff is never really supposed to satisfy. In fact, the stuff that we want, it's not even really the stuff, it's the significance behind the stuff. I've noticed this phenomenon, maybe you've noticed it as well. You ever realize this, where you have someone, whether it's you or someone that you know, get a new car? You ever notice the phenomenon that happens in that neighborhood? Like 30% of the neighborhood in the next 3 weeks, gets a new car. Like, how does that happen? Because they're driving it, hey, look, so-and-so, we barely even know them. They got a brand new, 2014, huh? Oh, the 15s are out early. No kidding. Wow. This 2013 is such a piece of junk. I'm so sick of this car. This thing is totally unacceptable for my needs. I was out the other day, I had 12 drinks, and this car only has 11 cup holders. It's gotta go. But how does that happen? But can I just be honest with you that none of us, what we want is not really the car? There's something of spiritual significance behind it. It's what it represents. It represents freedom, youth, it represents power and control. That's the thing that we're really looking at. You ever have a friend who buys a new house, they buy a bigger house, and you go visit them, and you're like, and then you're like, hey, I'm so happy for you. And then you're leaving and you're like, dude, what are they thinking? Do they know how much they're going to pay in water in this house? You come up with the most ridiculous things. That power bill's going up at least 10%, no doubt. But then you go home to your house and you're like, this place is totally unacceptable. Like the door creaks. Pool's too small. I don't even have a pool, it's just a bathtub. So you start going into all that, right? And then you're like, I gotta move. Honey, we have to move. Why? Their house is perfect. No, I'm not pressure cleaning. I'm not investing more money in this house. We're out of here, right? We're like, but we gotta go. We gotta upgrade. You know why? But see, can we be honest? It's not really the house. It's what it represents. It's the spiritual significance behind it, of security, success, accomplishment, stature, prestige, all of those things. And here's the deal, is that we desire the things, but sometimes we don't realize that what we really desire is the spiritual substance behind it. That's why when we want the thing never really satisfies. And we thought, yeah, but I thought the thing was going to satisfy. No, it's the thing behind it. It's the spiritual significance behind it. You see, and that's why those desires, they're meant to stir us up, because they create a desire for another place. One of my favorite authors, C.S. Lewis, who wrote, my favorite book of his is a book that he wrote called Mere Christianity. And in Mere Christianity, he says this: if I find in myself desires which nothing in this world can satisfy, the only logical explanation is that I was created for another world. You see, we aren't just physical creatures, we are spiritual beings with physical bodies. And Jesus is causing us to say, we all have a thirst. So if we have a thirst, what are we supposed to do with that? We've gone to all these other things. What does he want us to do? Look at the second half of verse 37. Pardon me, he says this: if any man thirst, let him come to me and drink. And that's why number 2 in your notes is that belief comes not just by recognizing my need. Number 2, belief comes by redirecting my steps. And Jesus doesn't want us to just recognize that we have a spiritual need. But there has to be a redirection, that we stop going to all of the other things that we think can satisfy. We turn around and then go to him who is the only one who can really meet the need. And the thing is that this goes out to everyone in every walk of life. Jesus calls us out to. Now let me show you what happens once again at now as we move on in the story of John chapter 7. He says this, look at verse 10. But when his brothers had gone up, that is to the feast, then he also went up to the feast, not openly, but as it were in secret. Then the Jews sought him at the feast and said, "Where is he?" And there was so much complaining among the people concerning him. Some said he is good. Others said, no, on the contrary, he deceives the people. However, no one spoke openly of him for fear of the Jews. Now about the middle of the feast, Jesus went up into the temple and taught. And the Jews marveled, saying, "How does this man know letters, having never studied?" And Jesus answered and said to them, "My doctrine is not mine, but his who sent me. If anyone wills to do his will, he shall know concerning the doctrine, whether it is from God or whether I speak on my own authority." Now, if you pause there and give me your attention, there's something powerful here that Jesus says that I want to drill down on. Because here's what happens. The people Jesus goes down to the feast. He goes secretly because people are like, he's good, he's not good. They're wondering. And then Jesus gets to the temple. He starts teaching openly. And people are amazed, and here's what they're saying, that how is it that he speaks with such wisdom, but he doesn't know letters? That is, it's another way of saying, how is it that he speaks with such depth, but he doesn't have any formal training, a formal education? He doesn't have a PhD, so how can he speak with such authority and speak from such wisdom? And Jesus then turns, this is in verse 16, and he says, listen, my doctrine isn't mine. These teachings aren't just coming from me, they're coming from my Father who told me what to say. And then he says this in verse 17, if anyone wills to do his will, he'll know whether what I'm saying is true or not. Listen, in that verse is, I believe, one of the keys to understanding and doing God's will. I talk to people all the time. I get emails all the time and messages saying, Pastor, I need to know what to do. Every time I read through the prayer requests that you guys fill out every week, this is one of the common themes. I need to make a decision. I need God to show me what to do. And I want to address this if I can, because I think it's so important. And that is because in this verse is a key to knowing God's will. Because he says this, right? He says, if anyone wants to do his will, God's will, he will know whether what I'm saying is true or not. And here's what he's saying essentially. Let me put it this way. It might be a little simpler to understand. That is, if you do what you know, you'll know what to do. Let me say it again. If you do what you know, you'll know what to do. If you want to know God's will, you'll know what to do if you have the will to do what it is that you already know. You see, let me explain it this way. When I obey the commands of God that I already know what to do, the things that God has clearly explained to me, to us in his word of what we're supposed to do, if I will already do what I know to be right from the scriptures to do, the things that I don't know will become much clearer. Too often what happens is we get stuck. We say, well, I need to know the answer to this. And somehow it paralyzes us. And then we say, well, what am I supposed to do? I don't know what to do here. So it causes me to do nothing on all of the other things that I already know what to do. So what's the answer? The answer is, and sometimes we think, well, I'm not going to do anything until I know the answer to this one thing. That's a bad strategy. The better strategy is to do what we already know to be true. Do the things that God has already revealed to you until you get an answer on this other thing. And if you do what you know to do, then what will happen is God will reveal to you the things that you don't understand. If you do what you know, then you will know what to do. You see, in Proverbs chapter 3, many of us know this passage, but it says it this way. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. That word acknowledge him is the Hebrew word yada, Y-A-D-A. It's used over 900 times in the Old Testament, referring to knowing someone. It's a term that's used referring to how, Adam knew his wife and then she conceived. So there's an intimate knowledge and understanding that's buried in the definition of this word. But the idea is not just acknowledge God, like, hey, I know you're there. It's this understanding of knowing God. Know God in all of your ways, and he'll direct your paths. How do you know God in all of your ways? Remember when you were a kid and you were out or whatever, and your friends would say, hey, let's go do this. And you'd say, yeah, I can't go. I can't do it. Well, why is that? Well, what's going to happen is I'm going to ask my mom. My mom's going to say no. I'm going to get in trouble for even asking because I should know better. And so what I'm going to do is just say no right now that I can't go. Yeah, but you haven't even asked her. Listen, this is not going to end well for me if I even ask. There's going to be a chancleta with my name on it if I even bring this up, okay? Which if you don't know what that is a sandal that Cuban moms wear that have supernatural powers, basically. They can make 90-degree turns and, whatever, if you're trying to escape it. It's like a boomerang. It's like a boomerang / heat-seeking missile, all in one. But when you say, I already know what she's going to say, I already know what my dad's going to say, so I'm already going to say no, that is knowing God. That's knowing your parents in all of your ways. What God is saying for us to do is know Him. How has God operated in the past with people in similar situations in the Scriptures? And if you know that, you'll probably have an understanding as to what God wants to do in the future. That's why Paul, in writing Romans, says this in Romans 12, therefore, I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to present your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good and pleasing and perfect will. And that's why Jesus calls out and He says, if any man thirsts, let him come to me and drink. This idea of come to me is one of the themes of Jesus' ministry. He says it 11 times in 3 years. He says, come to me. For those that are weighed down with religious duties and rituals, He says, come to me, all of you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. To those, the little children that wanted to know Him, He says, let the little children come to me. To those who are hungry, He says, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never hunger. To everyone, He says, anyone who comes to me, I will by no means cast out. Over and over, He invites us to come to Him. Why? Because He is the fountain of living water where we can find satisfaction. Well, what happens next? We'll finish this whole section. If you look at let's start from verse 37. We'll read all the way through. He says, and on the last day, the great day of the feast, Jesus stood and cried out, saying, if anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink. And he who believes in me, as the Scriptures has said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. But this He spoke concerning the Spirit, whom those believing in Him would receive. For the Holy Spirit was not yet given, because Jesus was not yet glorified. Therefore, many from the crowd, when they heard this, said, truly, this is the prophet. Others said, this is the Christ. But some said, will the Christ come out of Galilee? But has not the Scripture said that the Christ who comes from the seed of David, and it will be from the town of Bethlehem where David was? And so there was a division among the people because of Him. Now some of them wanted to take Him, but no one laid hands on Him. And then the officers came to the priests and the chief priests and the Pharisees and said to them, why have you not brought Him? And the officers said, no man has ever spoken like this man. And then the Pharisees answered him, are you also deceived? Have any of the rulers of the Pharisees believed in Him? But this crowd, and this is key to note, please remember this, but this crowd that does not know the law is accursed. And Nicodemus, who came to Jesus by night, being one of them, said to them, does our law judge a man before it hears him and knows what he is doing? And they answered and said to him, are you also from Galilee? Which is a derogatory statement. Anyway, you can pick your place where you say that, in our common area. I don't want to offend anyone if you live in Hialeah or something. Anyway, I didn't say that. I'm saying it might be the place you pick, or West Virginia, whatever. Or if you're a NASCAR fan, whatever. So he says, are you also from Galilee? Search and look, for no prophet has arisen out of Galilee. By the way, can I just say this as an aside? They said to the people, this whole crowd that doesn't know the Bible are accursed. Can I tell you this? These same people, no prophet has ever arisen out of Galilee. 4 prophets arose out of Galilee that they should know about. There's a guy by the name of Micah. He has a book out called Micah, right? The prophet Elijah was from Galilee. The prophet Nahum was from Galilee, and a guy that they should have heard of named Jonah was also from Galilee. These are all Galilean prophets. And they're like, "Oh, you're cursed if you don't know the Bible. No guy's ever been from there," and it's, well, what's going on? These guys didn't understand what was happening either. But everyone from every walk of life is being given the same opportunity to know God. And the offer is, come to me and drink. And out of your innermost being, what will happen? There will be this river of living water. Not only will you be quenched, but everyone around you will have the opportunity to be quenched as well. And we just make the offer, and it doesn't, sometimes people don't respond to the offer. I had this happen a while ago with my daughter. My daughter's 7. This is around the time. She's probably about 5.5 at the time. And I was in my office at home, and she says to me, she comes in, she says, "Dad, can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." She says, "Do you want a new wallet?" I said, I don't know. And she said, "Well, let me ask another question. Is your wallet made of metal?" "No." "Oh, well, then you need to come here. Because, Dad, if your wallet ever gets run over by a truck, if you have a metal wallet, it will be okay. Come here, let me show you." So she sits me down in the living room, and she has rewound this thing on television. She turns it on, and it's an infomercial about a metal wallet. I don't know how she had changed the channel, or maybe it was her show ended or something, and she's watching this infomercial, and she's like watching the infomercial and then looking at me like, "See?" And then they show someone's wallet falling on the ground, like, "Oh no." And then a truck comes over and runs it over, and then they open up the metal wallet and everything is okay. And I'm like, well, it's not because it's metal, it's because usually everything in a wallet is flat, right? It's not like, "Oh no, all of my marbles were crushed because I keep them all in my wallet." Anyway, so anyway, then there's this woman, and in her part of the story, she's walking around and has a gallon of water, and she's like, and then her purse is open. She's like, "Oh no, the water's getting in my purse." And then the gallon of water is emptied in the purse, and then they open it up, and all the things, and like, what kind of like liquid situation are they going to be in? That there's going to be. I mean, first of all, how many women are carrying around a gallon of water in their purse? But then again, have you ever like lifted up a woman's purse? Like, what are you women carrying around in there? I lifted up a diaper bag the other day for my wife, and I'm like, "What do you have in here, your rock collection? This thing weighs like 75 pounds. Anyway, I'm moving on because I'm like treading on getting in trouble because my wife attends this service. And so anyway, the infomercial ends, and then it's like, "Act now," and it was like $10 or something. And she's like, "So, would you like to buy a metal wallet? I think it would be really good for you." And I'm like, I say to her, I'm like, "Do you get commission on this?" I'm telling you, I felt like I was in a high-pressure timeshare presentation. And I'm like, "Listen, I don't want to buy anything. I'm just here for the free Disney World tickets, okay? That's it." You guess you've been to one of those too. I'm just trying to go to Epcot for free. That's why I'm here. And so I tell her no. And I mean, she's like, "Okay. But if your wallet gets run over by a truck, I don't know what's going to happen." I think she has a career in sales ahead of her, because I was convicted at that moment. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen either, now that you think about it, And now here's the thing. This is the thing my daughter learned, and it's so powerful, but it's the same point that Jesus makes. Just knowing what the offer is doesn't help you. It's receiving the offer that changes your life. Jesus calls out to the crowd and he says, "Listen, you come to me and drink out of your innermost being." That's how satisfied and fulfilled you're going to be, out of your innermost being. This isn't just a physical deal. This thirst, it is a spiritual thing. You see, this idea of coming to God to quench spiritual thirst is a theme throughout all of the scriptures. Starting from the beginning of Moses striking the rock and water coming out, all the way to the end of the Bible in the book of Revelation. In Revelation 22, the Bible says this. It's in your notes. It says, "And the Spirit and the bride say, 'Come,' and let him who hears come. Let him who thirsts come, and whoever desires, let him take the water of life freely." Here's the point. Every single one of us were born with a spiritual thirst that is unquenchable apart from God. That's why we go through all of these different things in life, hoping that they will satisfy. Whether it's materialism or relationships or whatever else. We try to get these things to hope that they will satisfy, but they never do. Because it's only in coming into a relationship with Jesus Christ, as Jesus says in these verses, that we are actually satisfied. Because listen, God created you. God designed you in such a way so that nothing other than Him would actually satisfy. That's why life doesn't really make sense without Him. That's why so many times we're frustrated with life, because the thing that was supposed to bring satisfaction and fulfillment hasn't actually come through or brought it or delivered on the thing that it said that it would. And listen, as we talked about earlier, if nothing in this world can satisfy the thirst that you have, then maybe it's because you were created for another world. Maybe it's because you aren't just a physical being, that you are spiritual and who has a body. And it's only in the spiritual that we actually find the satisfaction that we're looking for. That's why Jesus Christ came into this world. He lived a perfect life, and He died a death on a cross. They crucified Him, they buried Him, and said it was game over. And then 3 days later, He came back to life, proving that He was God, proving that He had victory over death, and proving that He could forgive us of everything we've ever done, because He died for us, for everything we had ever done. And He gives us that opportunity to come to know Him, to experience life to the full that begins by being forgiven of everything that's happened in our past. I believe some of us want to make that decision today, so let's pray together. And Lord, we want to thank You for the promise that we can know You, that we can be satisfied in You. And God, we thank You that You haven't let us be satisfied by any of the counterfeits, any of the things that just will never and can never satisfy. So Lord, I pray that You would do a work in our midst right now, that we would hear this message, that we would act on it, and that our lives would be changed forever because of You, through the work You want to do in us. In Jesus' name. Amen.